Hi, I'm Jonathan Ward.
I'm Sonia Jante.
And I'm Kimberly Lane, and together we're Unlocking Leadership. We're three experienced executive coaches with very different disciplines. And every episode, we take a question from a real client and provide key insights to address their challenges from our three different perspectives. It's a holistic approach to understanding challenges and opportunities. Let's get to it. Our question today is from Brian in Meridian, Idaho. What tools or approaches do you recommend for illuminating and managing differences among an organization's many managers who are solving complex problems and need to collaborate? Jonathan, I think this is potentially a good question for you. Would you like to go first?
Wow. Yeah, that's a tough question. It depends on the size of the organization. I was thinking about a company that I worked for, a financial services organization that had gone from, just before I joined there, they'd gone from 300 employees to 18,000 employees.
Wow.
And, it was a highly explosive growth, shall we say. And what had been a very organic communication process where everybody knew everybody else, suddenly now, there's no way you could possibly know that many people in the organization. And when I joined, I remember one of the things that happened was that somebody said, well, we're working on trying to come up with like this virtual employee phone book or an internet place where people could have their things. And it turned out, and as I was interviewing people, there were 7 different projects to do exactly the same thing going on in different parts of the company that nobody knew any of these other people were working on. There was one person that all the data had to go through, and so this one person knew that these 7 projects were going on. And so in a small enough company, you might have somebody like that who's able to connect the dots for you, but otherwise you have to come up with a much more formal type of communication process, which could be anything like I think what I've seen be successful is having leadership offsites twice a year or something like that, where you bring all of the directors, you bring all the managers or people like that in an organization together. Whether it's not possible, if it's not possible for the whole company, at least for a large division or something like that, where you get people together and have them share some of the things that they've been working on. Or come up with a way where you can have the corporate communications department be kind of the handler of frequently asked questions that ask and things like that. But it's something that doesn't happen without somebody taking, I think, a really active role in making that happen. So I'm really curious, Sonia and Kimberly, what you've seen in the companies that you've consulted with.
And I think it's always easy, and we always first out of instinct will always focus on what's not working, right? In this case, the many differences, opinions, or the way they manage, or whatever might be going on, or priorities, or how they're aligned to the goals. And so I always kind of I try to build kind of teamwork and connectivity and connection and collaboration by looking instead at figure out amongst the managers what is working, what are they all agreeing on? Is it profitability? Is it deadlines? Is it they're all aligned with the corporate goals? What is it? But what is working? Where are they aligned, right? And what do we agree on? And build that foundation from there. And then from there, listing out the differences from every side, from every manager, and discussing both sides more from a holistic approach as best as possible, right? And figuring out we might all have we are finding out really what the whys are and what they're doing. And we might all find out we have the same whys, according to Simon Sinek, but the hows are the different part, right? So I think it's really taking a deep dive and understanding, where are the differences? And is it something that's not aligned with the overall arching corporate goal? And obviously, if it's not, there are some huge discrepancies there, because obviously from a top-down perspective, we do have to all be aligned in our managerial objectives in order to achieve the corporate objectives. But I would begin first about what is working, where are we aligned? And then secondarily, if all our end results are the same, it's really the how, then how can we come to an agreement that to maybe something that can be more system, standard across the board, if you will, depending on the managerial situation. No, it's kind of a simplistic form, but it's a good way to start, at least.
So I took a different spin on this question, because I figure like illuminating, I think of illuminating as like light bulbs going off. And I thought, what if in a offsite or in a workshop, or as part of what that organization does, there's certain specific assessments that everybody takes and that allows them to, if you will, focus on a couple of parts of those assessments that then we can say, okay, so in terms of solving problems. So I looked at the MBTI, Myers-Briggs, and I looked at the TKI, the Thomas Kilmann instrument. The first one, because obviously it looks at personality preferences and it breaks it down into the workforce and all that. And the other one, because it looks at different conflict resolution styles. And in terms of looking at the MBTI, I was just focused primarily on like, there's the N and the S. So it's like, and then the T and the F. So specifically, N stands for quote unquote intuition, S stands for sensing. The way that I describe it is N's tend to look at things big picture, long term, into the future, and S's are very focused on the now and how are we going to get it to work and how realistic is it and what do we really know for sure about it. And then with the T, they also are looking at things in terms of like the sequence of it, the logic of it. How are we, I always say like with somebody has a problem and they're a T, they're going to step back from it and try to analyze it from that place to try to arrive at a good answer. Where somebody who's an F is very concerned about how other people are feeling and it is going to walk into the problem together because they want to be very experiential. So when you have different leaders that work on different projects, would it make sense for them to know what their strengths and their natural inclinations are? And what does that mean in terms of like, who should we have working on the long-term project versus who should we have working on the short-term project? And then in terms of the conflict resolution style, because that has so much to do with the culture of the organization, the culture of the group, is understanding that there's all these different styles, whether, and they're dependent upon how much do I care about the relationship and how much do I care about the outcome in the project. So I was looking at that in terms of like, if people took those assessments and people had a way of being informed about it, and now they would be able to recognize, okay, for this project, I see why I naturally go to this. I see why this people go naturally to this. And there was a company where and you can use different assessments. I know there's like the DISC or whatever, where sometimes after people have taken the assessment, they actually have like a little, a flashcard or some information that allows you to know what their type is when you walk into their office or when you sit down together. And it's almost like, oh, it's like we went to the same school together. Oh, okay, I understand you. I get you. I was doing a 360 the other day with somebody, and it was interesting. The company has been around for about 11 years, and the culture of the company is very entrepreneurial. And they've also grown enough that some people are coming in from established companies and all of that. And quite a bit of one of the feedback that I was getting from quite a few of the leaders that were the entrepreneurial ones is this person's very aloof. They're not getting their hands dirty. They're not digging in there. And I thought, oh, okay. So even in trying to, they clearly hired the person's clearly doing well, but how do they illuminate the differences? By being able to recognize. So I sat there and I thought, okay, these guys are P's. They're like, let's work in the moment. Let's try to solve the problem in the moment. So that's how I looked at it. I looked at it. What assessments would you bring into the table to help eliminate so that people would like think new ways of how we all solve problems?
Yeah, and I'd like to add, if we're looking at assessments, I think the predictive index is a really valid tool as well, one of which I'm certified in, and because it really gives clarity on whether people are, if you're going to ask them a question, if they're going to want to think about it versus want to talk about it now. So, which can change the whole dynamic if you're in a meeting and trying to solve problems, right? If someone needs to really take some private time to think about it and be pensive in order to come back for a solution, that's going to change the whole ability to come up with a solution or result to the conversation, right? So they even get into who deals well with risk and ambiguity and who doesn't, and who needs to have everything exactly right, T's crossed, I's dotted, before they can move forward to the next step, versus some other people like you talked about, big picture. Your ends are big picture, right? Where somebody might a lot more facts, a lot more detail, and want to plan it out now before they take the next step. So that creates a whole dynamic when you're trying to collaborate and work on something as a team. And so I think those assessments can be very, very insightful. One about yourself, but also two about your teammates and maybe the way you guys conduct your teams and solve your complex problems might change based on those.
One of the things that I've seen organizations do is they put together like a skills database, who's worked on projects that have these various types of things. But what you're talking about here with the personality styles, it's really great to be able to mix all of those styles up on a team. It's a component of diversity. If you have a team that's all made up of people who think the same way, have the same type of preference for solving problems or things like that, you're not going to get the best answer. It may be a little tougher to try to bring everybody together, but you're much more likely to get a well-rounded solution that's going to work for more people if you have a diversity of thinking styles and of personality styles on your teams.
Mm-hmm. I know, I agree with you, because and it's part of having a common language to be able to understand why is it that we look at things differently, and then being able to, based on that, assess, okay, so I don't get annoyed by somebody going to a place that I don't naturally go to. And then they can also honor the way that I look at things, because between the three of us or the five of us or whatever, we're going to come up with a better solution.
Yeah, we don't, I mean, in a good way, Brian, it's kind of good in the essence that we don't have a lot of like-minded, gotta think like the next guy, people that aren't afraid to express their own ideas and opinions. So that's good. That's good for innovation. That's good for creativity, as long as everybody has a safe environment in order to challenge each other and to express their honest opinions and, try to collaborate. So it's when that's not allowed, it can become very toxic, and hopefully that's not the case.
Well, I sure hope not. Thank you, Sonia and Kimberly, for your insights. And thank you, Brian from Meridian, Idaho, for your question today. We hope you, our viewers and listeners, gain some pointers for helping leaders with different approaches and styles collaborate in solving complex problems. To our listeners, if you like the content we shared today, please like this episode and also share and subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is Unlocking Leadership-askthecoaches.com. We look forward to reading your reviews. You can also find Unlocking Leadership Ask the Coaches on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast platform. If you have a leadership question or would like to reach out to our coaches, please email us at info@unlockingleadership-askthecoaches.com. We would love to hear from you. Thanks for joining us today, and please tune in next time to find the keys to unlocking your best leadership.